I'm Stasia Bliss. I'm back here again with what I call, this is like the dream team here. Guys, we had you here before. Would you just say hello? And I don't actually know what we're going to say today, but we'll see how it goes.
Hello. Well, you remember Alex, of course. Alex
Yes.
Hoff and Angela
The
Quasar.
angel, yeah.
Angela Quasar, and I'm Thornton Streeter, so that's us again.
Angela, is your last name really Quasar?
That is my my medicine name from doing a vision.
I love it. Awesome. Yeah. Perfect.
It is perfect, isn't it? Yeah.
Beautiful.
So since we last spoke, you know, we've been building out our subtle science lab and our subtle science course. And that's why I said to you, you know, why just, you know, talk to me? Why not talk to our team? You know,
to all of you, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so last week we had so much fun. And then again, I just, well, then let's just make this, you know, you said the dream team, but, you know, we're the subtle science dream team.
Yes, yeah. The subtle science dream team. Absolutely.
With our Technicolor dream coats. But, you know, it's already incredibly exciting. And I'm sure that's what we'll convey even today. Alex went to get one of our colleagues who came in from Madrid to join us for the summer camp last night.
Oh, wonderful. Great. So cool. Who's that?
Our friend
Luis, Miguel. Come.
Is he coming in? Come on in.
Yeah, why not?
Get the
For sure. Hello.
He looks like he's just won the World Cup, I think.
You certainly do.
Really? Why?
Certainly do.
Because I think that
I love it.
And it literally says EST.
Yeah, ESPN.
But this is actually aviation.
I love it. So say your name again, just for the audience.
So my name is Luis Miguel.
Luis Miguel. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Wonderful. Welcome. Oh, so just to tie this into my channel, could we start with your thoughts, each of you, on this idea of Kundalini? Can we start there?
Should we zigzag with ladies first?
Yeah.
So. Sure, please.
Beautiful. So I got to do my full practice this morning, and it's in Salong Tumo, coming from Tibetan Vajrayana. And there's a slightly different chakra system. It feels more connected to potentially like the light body, and then with recognition of the energy body. And so there's similar elements. And I've done Kundalini yoga. I did it every day for a month. That was a powerful initiation. And coming into my you know, awakening process. And in it, we breathe into the root, and then like continue to build it, feeling into the body, breathing into the belly. And when those channels are clear, continuing to ascend into the heart, into the throat, just witnessing any blocks, gracefully releasing via our awareness and attention, bringing it to the mind, bringing it to the crown of the head, and then just letting all that light pour in. And so I love that there's these different approaches from all around the world that are converging, and that in this time of, you know, people from around the world who live around the world in different countries, it's been part of the stories, is that there's something weaving it all together, that like a rainbow is it's called the arco-iris in some places, and a rainbow, but like it's the rainbow.
Arc-en-ciel.
Beautiful. Okay, so even more so, in case somebody is just showing up and they're just dipping in, what is this that you're feeling and following, this Kundalini? What would be a descriptive term for people who are maybe trying to feel if that's what they're noticing in them?
Well, so in the sense with Kundalini, like Kundalini is like this serpent that's coiled at the base of your chakra system. And as you do these practices, you're sort of awakening the serpent and moving energy up the spine, up the central channel. There's this sort of visualization from the more Vedic tradition of the Ida and the Pingala, with these masculine and feminine channels that are weaving up your spine. And then this sort of central column called the Sushumna. And, you know, Kundalini yoga is a type of yoga that focuses more on bandhas, locks, and mudras, which are sort of like the circuitry of the body, how we can connect the circuitry of the body and then use the breath and intention, meditation to, you know, sort of experience our Kundalini. And so, you know, Kundalini yoga is a little different than like a typical vinyasa yoga class where you're doing all these different poses kind of over and over. It's sometimes some of the Kundalini kriyas can be, you know, half an hour of a single type of breathing in a single body posture. And, you know, my experience with that type of yoga is that it really, in a similar way to like holotropic breath work or like some of the more new age types of breath work, it taps you into this sort of buzzing feeling that you know, feel in your body. And you know, it's this visceral electrical sensation. And so there's many different ways of tapping into it. The, you know, Kundalini in the States often refers to 3HO Kundalini, which is brought to the United States by Yogi Bhajan. But I think Kundalini is a much larger, and especially in this intercultural context, like there's many perspectives on Kundalini. And what we're hoping to do, the reason that we're calling this lab the Subtle Science Lab, is because to us, the biofield is a organism that's sort of rich with detail, and all of that detail is very subtle, and there's science behind sort of the individual components and the individual anatomy that comprises the biofield. So we're sort of taking a step.
Okay, this is perfect. Let me pause you just for a moment, and just to tie in so that everybody's on the same page here. I don't know how much research you guys have done on me and what's going on in my channel or anything, but so my whole jam on this channel is Kundalini embodiment. And I'm not a Yogi Bhajan student. My teacher was more like, you know, universal Kundalini yoga. And so the idea is that this is this God force in us, right? This is our true nature, that we're going from a, you know, not so aware being to suddenly like recognizing this greater force of energy within us. And we're using these modalities and these little techniques and so forth to tune into how do we master this form. And so my channel is like all these tools and practices and mantras and mudras and all this stuff. And so I'm excited to have you guys here, because I'm like, you guys are researching this, you guys are doing, you know, like science on this. For a lot of people, this is kind of like a weird woo-woo idea of like, what are we talking about? Am I going crazy? Am I psychotic? Am I bipolar? Am I, you know, like, what is this energy? And especially like the purification process that we go through when we begin to feel this flow, is a lot of people struggle with the side effects, you could say, of like accessing this energy field. And so on that crux, let's continue. Do you have another thought on that, Alex?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's the awakening of Kundalini in the body is something that is sort of a step further than just the idea of chi or prana or life force in the body. It's an awakened flow of energy, you know, right. And the Taoists call this the microcosmic orbit. It's something that we awaken through this process of like Taoist meditation or tantric meditation. And, you know, it's something that can be awakened through the individual, and it can also be awakened through partnership and through, you know, lovemaking. But even in a group context, it's something that sort of creates this trans-auric form where it's not just the individual will at that point, it's sort of the will of the group of individuals that are all kind of there in sangha, burning together, if you will. And you know, the word sangha comes from the word tangam in Tamil, which meant fire. And so, you know, there's this sort of notion that like in this sort of like process of you know, awakening in the sense of like self-enlightenment, you know, that we can learn through others, that we can learn by studying with, you know, others who have maybe walked a path that we haven't walked, or show us a new way of being in our body. You know, I know that for me, like my sort of before and after of doing my yoga teacher training was that I realized, like, before my yoga teacher training, I didn't really know how to breathe because I hadn't focused on my breath for a month straight yet, you know. And then after that process of really learning about the mechanics of your own body and doing these things that are so much more bizarre than, you know, jumping jacks and push-ups, but are these sort of like age-old traditions that have,
it actually feel kind of really natural, don't you think?
yeah, they're
Yeah.
like the buttons in the mainframe, right? And you
Right.
know, I think that the technology of the future is the human being.
Isn't
you
it
know?
more like the icing funnel?
The icing funnel?
Yeah, you're kind of
Like,
creating
you're
this position to kind of squeeze.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't know if we're decorating a cupcake.
Yeah, we are.
That sounds like fun.
Anyway, I want to jump in one sec here because
Yeah,
you know,
please.
I think one of the reasons we talk about all this chaos when suddenly people who are really unaware of, you know, what is a very natural, actually aging wisdom process, and because it's been hidden from them. It's like a shock. It's like a poor 12-year-old girl who has a period whose parents haven't told her about.
Yes, I call it the second puberty too. Actually, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you haven't got a big sister in Kundalini, you're kind of on your own. And I just want to explain why you don't have a big sister in Kundalini, because that helps people understand why they're actually walking the plank already 2 meters in before they realize they're even on a plank.
Right.
You know? So I'll give you an example of this, right? Kundalini is, to me, no different from consciousness, right? And even Christopher Hills gives a very simple equation. Kundalini equals consciousness. It doesn't, it doesn't even equal ego. It just Kundalini equals consciousness. So Kundalini is a fabulous old Sanskrit word, but we're quite comfortable talking about consciousness, actually.
Right.
And so then it's not this weird other thing, but because consciousness itself has been suppressed. I mean, very simply, the word government is a French word, and it means gouvern means control, and mort means mind. So government means mind control, the actual fucking word. Yeah. In the same way. In the same way, mortgage means death rate.
Death.
You pay till you're dead. So I mean, there are these very, you know, there's things hidden in plain sight, and they're markers for let's call them others, to work out how well the cognitive dissonance winds are blowing. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So that's just me setting the scene of this little one-act play. And as I said, Kundalini is consciousness, right?
Thank you. Absolutely.
When we relate to the human body, there's an anatomy and physiology for our consciousness. In the same way, there's anatomy and physiology for our fluids, and for our solids, and for our Bio-field, you know, this equipment. And so
I just call it spiritual mechanics, like the spiritual mechanics of the body.
Yeah. Well, fundamentally, it starts when you and your boyfriend start twinkling eyes, and then that starts weaving this web, this lattice. And then when you actually, you know, get pregnant, this web, this kind of that egg is like a spider, and he's creating this amazing network of filaments, what we now call the premovascular system. Yeah, and it's called primo because it's the first, and it develops before all the squidgy cells decide to start looking like a tadpole or a chicken, and then eventually a human being. So it's kind of the earliest structures in the embryo. And then we say, well, why haven't we seen them so far? And the reality is because people like to identify things and throw the liquid out with the bathwater. You know, there's your kidney. We're not interested
Throw the
in
baby out with the bath.
Yeah, the kidney out with the bathwater. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
so my point is that it's been very easy to hide any work that's gone on in this field to the Western scientific spectrum. So, for example, 5,000 years ago, there was a Swiss man walking on a mountain, and he tripped and he fell into the river. And then 5,000 years ago, I mean, later, which is just recently, he emerged from a glacier, this fellow, right? And he had all these tattoos down his back on his acupuncture points, all the way down his back, exactly on his acupuncture points. So we realized that this concept of meridians and acupuncture points is even older than the Chinese couple of thousand years yellow emperor business. Yeah. So then about 60 years ago, one scientist rediscovered these fiber optic strands. Very tiny they are, because he had really good eyesight. And he's also orientally minded. So he was like, well, these meridians, maybe I could go find them, and I'll find them. And he found them. And he did a lot of research. But then weirdly, he disappeared. Yeah.
Of course.
And so then 50 years later, means only in the last 10 years, some other cat picks up his papers, his book, and says, well, this is amazing. What is this? What are these amazing fiber optic strands that go through organs? And if you actually look up premovascular system now, you'll see these NIH papers which go, it's not real. It's a scam. It's one of those pseudo things. So in other words, in plain sight for 5,000 years, especially in the most recent couple of 100 years where the Muggles need suppressing, they've done a really good job of it. So it's a bit like when you go to school and you come out and you don't know how to look after your money because nobody ever taught you how to do that. The same.
They didn't tell you anything you needed to know.
It's the same Fugazi. They want you to be like in debt. If you're 200K in debt, you can never get out of that hole. You know, most students.
And that's all you think about. That's where your consciousness is. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's the issue right now. And that's why sisters and brothers are in the bathroom looking at themselves, seeing two lizard-head freaks and having no frame of reference for what that vision questing is. So it becomes very important for people like you and some of us to talk about these things because we can hold hands and we can say, you know, it's like an acid trip, you know, what you're experiencing today. But tomorrow you'll just be like, you know, you'll be grinning in the flowers, you know, and so relax, you know, there's cues and things we can say and do now. The actual Kundalini journey itself, I was very blessed to spend a few years working with the Emerging Sciences Foundation. And you can search them, anyone who listens to this, and you'll see that is it's almost an emergency service just for Kundalini people. So if you go to YouTube,
glad that exists.
So if you go to YouTube and you look at Emerging Science Foundations, you'll find some of these 1-hour lectures from people who are literally working as if they were surgeons, seeing 10 Kundalini. Yeah, it's really important. That's what I want to say.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, emerging.
That's what I feel like with clients a lot. I'm an emergency practitioner.
Totally. So then our colleague at the end who's just arrived from Madrid, maybe you can ask him the same question. He may not.
Please.
Well, I guess I come from a complementary point of view. That's why I guess that we make a great team. My interest is actually how to bring this biofield concept into mass adoption through a very simple concept that allows people to have such a profound experience that they, what's going on, what's the principle behind this that produce such an impact. So when I met Thornton years ago during the World Economic Forum week in Davos, Switzerland, we had a concept that with a friend partner we developed called the soul fee. How people would be able to take a selfie of their soul, which in essence was just to see their biofield and experience and hear it, so that it becomes like a synesthetic, wow, what is going on with my energy, you know? So you would see yourself in front of the camera, and we would take a selfie. The thing is that for all these years, I realized that putting people in front of a camera and trying to explain to them that these colors mean something was not really, you know, they were still skeptical. So that's where the cat comes in. So the cat here is not random. So I have kind of like, I consider myself like an Imagineer. So I surround myself with scientists, with technologists that are able to code these things. But with using imagination, I can kind of like create an envelope that can be brought into people using it. So just to summarize, I come from Madrid, and in Spain we have this cultural historic figure, Don Quixote and Sancho. Maybe you've heard from them. It's a very famous book. It's actually
Don Quixote. Oh yeah.
Don Quixote, exactly. So basically, I've just reimagineered the concept of a companion, like Sancho is to Don Quixote, but not as a guy who goes on a donkey, but as a cat, as a flying cat that is the co-pilot of your heart. It's the co-pilot of your heart. That's the concept. This is the aviation cat from Madrid.
Okay, I like this. Yeah.
So I'm kind of using symbols that normal people can connect. Oh, Sancho, yeah, Sancho goes with Quixote. Yeah. Okay, now Sancho is gonna be your companion cat. That's gonna reflect to you your own energy field through these colors. Sancho arcoiris, Sancho rainbow is his name. So it's a rainbow cat that's superimposed onto you. So you put yourself in front of a camera, and you appear like with a funny, cute little cat. You get sanctified. Sancho actually is a word that comes from sanctus. So it's a way of, you get sanctified, you get sanctified, like you heal. Because
very
you see
good.
yourself as this Sancho companion, which is cute. So it's like, hey Thornton, how are you feeling? It's like, let me Sancho will get a selfie from me.
Okay.
And then
cat reflection tells me, kind
of like a gamified kind of funny
way. Maybe he purrs for healing.
Yeah, we can have like custom purrs that are like the purr for your soul, like
the right vibration.
And even I'm actually, even you mentioned, Thornton, like chaos and randomness. So we have also another kind of person next to us that is an expert on coherent and on randomness. So I was seeing that that the soul field that you would see would get more coherent, the light that it would reflect, and we could even gamify that process. So even reward people when they are getting more healed, getting more sanctified, they're getting more sanctified.
I can see that.
Turn that sound as well. Now the thing is how to measure that, and I have this profound personal experience that the essence of a person can be seen on the eyes. So for I would say 1 year, I've been kind of like insisting, let's do a fundamental analysis on the eyes, because to me the light on the eye is the frequency of the heart. So if you can get that light,
goes along with the eyes of the window to the soul feeling.
Let's take a selfie of people by analyzing light on their eyes and turning that data even into sound. You mentioned vibratory or biofield orchestra in one video that I saw from you.
Yeah, in the courses, like interwoven nature as a vibratory orchestra. So like all making that music through the vessels, our emptiness. And to share with you, where we only just met this morning, but in terms of the like synchronicities that are emerging here, like I was thinking of like Pocahontas, a circle, a hoop that never ends. And he said hoop, one of the projects. At the same time, that like lyric was in my head. And then even prior to coming here, prior to Alexander speaking of me, I wrote my my like inner 16-year-old that went marching on the streets to protest, like, you know, the war in Iraq, was then kind of quieter in college. I had to focus on schoolwork and physics. But what I wrote, I was May 22nd or something. It was Vesak, the Buddha's birthday, and Enlightenment Day. And I wrote an essay called Re-Sanctify Science. And it's like, it was only recently that science and spirituality got deeply interwoven. It was like, we see it in the Egyptian cultures, in Peru and the Mayans, and many places where like they are one. And it's only recently that some people in some pockets of the world have forgotten. It feels like, as I hear more about India, from my that there are whole schools dedicated to the sacred fire. And so yeah, that was delightful. And I think Alexander and I met at an event. It was a small like home event called Emerge and See. So when you're like talking about emergencies,
yeah. These like little trigger words of synchronicity. I know, I noticed those too. I love it.
Synchro, so it's just like just jubilant from all of that. But it was the sense
but this part, what you're saying, Angela, like this is part of the wisdom of the awakening, like learning this language of life to listen to these rhythms. It like helps ease the process of, you know, development and becoming more aware, right?
Yeah, and then like, you know, if to be in a shell, and like when you're growing, it can be constraining. It probably requires a bit of like a verse to like open that dragon egg and be your have your Kundalini serpent dragon like expression in a wider world.
Yeah, and I think that there, you know, within like my study of astrology, there's a huge aspect of the animal magnetism and the animal magic and spirit animals, and just sort of the reflection of our animal nature that exists archetypally in our bodies, right? And so you know, for instance, like my human design, I have a channel in Leo, and so I have a lot of Leo energy, even though I'm a Sagittarius. But then there's this aspect like where I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm the you know, in this philosopher hunter archetype, and I'm, you know, there's the centaur, you run, and you know, you're a man.
I'm a Sagittarius too, so I get it.
Right. And so, you know, but then, you know, I remember like sitting on Venice Beach with this like, you know, kind of homeless like seer dude, and he's like, oh, like, hey, like, you want to, you know, roll me a joint for a astrology reading or something, and he's like, oh, you're part of the motorcycle gang sign, you know, like, you know, and so then it was like the idea of like Sagittarius with the motorcycle gang sign, you know, there's so many different like ways of anthropomorphizing. That is what I have not heard. You get it though, like it's like, you know, Sagittarius, we're like these global explorers, and we're, you know, we get uncomfortable, we go the other way, and like, you know, we're in this weaving of this path. And you know, so what I think is super cool, like, you know, when Luis Miguel like first told us this idea, it was like, you know, the Solfi, and then Sancho Arcoiris, and then like, you know, for me, like my more embodied magical realm is more with moose magic, actually. Like I realized when I was a kid that I really liked mooses, or people just kept giving me mooses. It was like this funny, like, people, what's your favorite animal? I'd be like, the moose. And I never really thought about it. And then one of my first times ever, like in ceremonial, like in a ceremonial medicine space, after the ceremony, this friend had this book that was called like Animals Speak, and it had like 5 pages of like 11-point font with like research on the moose and like the meaning of the moose magic, and all the like history of like how the moose magic was basically like cranial sacral therapy and unwinding and soul retrieval, and that it was this, the moose was this sort of archetype of soul retrieval. And then going down this thing of like, well, what is soul retrieval, and what if we were to retrieve the soul of the planet? What if we were to all embody our souls in a way. And this is what I mean when I talk about Kundalini as almost a step beyond like just having bioenergy or just having chi. Like everybody has chi. Everybody has
exactly.
a certain amount of you know, they might be wasting it,
or you're not alive.
or you're not alive. But like, you know, so there's practices like some of the wisdom in yoga and in Taoism and Tantra is how do you not waste your life force? How do you get more? Where does, you know, because we have natal chi that we get
and build and
and we actually, our body runs on that natal chi for the first 7 years of our life until we've fully shed all of the molecular information of our mother and we've rebuilt our body. And then we start producing our own endogenous current of chi and life force. And then that takes us through the next 7 years. And the next, you know, and the cellular information in our body is also shedding, you know, and so there's this aspect of clearing and shedding and the diuretic system, right? Like it's like we're eating and we're consuming other organisms, we're assimilating those things into information, and then we're getting rid of that old information and that old molecular, like, you know, stuff,
data.
And then, you know, but then if you, for instance, develop cancer or a tumor or some form of neuropathy, there's blockages that happen within this flow that make it so that elimination system can't function correctly. So then you keep eating and your body doesn't know what to do with that information because it's this high geometry, plastified, chemicalized food, right? And so, you know, and so within this aspect of like, you know, medicine and poison, right? Like, how do we learn to feel in our body, like even through just like a simple muscle test? Like I think muscle testing, kinesiology is a really great example of like an embodied any practice, because you can hold something in your hand and you can say, is this for me? And your body will respond. And if it's not for you, your body will also respond. And that's such a consistent thing that you don't even have to think. Your body's going to think for you because your body is conscious in a way that your thoughts, the neuroscience perspective is like, oh, like everything's in your head and it's all conceptual and it all has to be logical and stuff. But the fact is that your digestion doesn't think, your digestion feels, right? And so, yeah, there's just this exploration here that we can kind of open up through, you know, exploring these different subtle concepts of like, you know, how does our body work and what are the controls here, you know? And so something that's also been really inspiring to me is like just this idea of, you know, the performance, right? How do we perform as human beings? And so, you know, one of my mentors, Dr. Brian Reynolds at UC Irvine, you know, started this sort of transversal poetry movement in a sense of this transversal movement in the performance space. And so even before I was exposed to like my yoga training and stuff, I was exposed to these like theater exercises that were designed to get you to disinhibit from the unconscious or the mental, right? It's like there's the conscious and there's the
like the program.
And the mental can hold back the consciousness. If you're in a negative thought spiral and your monkey mind is in control, the conscious awakening of your body is actually being limited by logic. And so, you know, within like the modality of human design, like if somebody has no definition to their chart and they're a reflector, which is the rarest type of human design, our coaching for them is, hey, your active state of awareness, the correct state of awareness for you is surprise. It's not like I'm a manifester and I want this and to inform. That's manifest, you know, are the empresses in our realm who are here to inform people and really articulate in a really clear way, because their aura is shaped in a way that pushes energy. You know, it guides energy by moving it. Whereas, you know, Luis Miguel and I are projectors, and our auras sort of dive into the other, and we can take on their energy and almost like mirror it back. But then we have to also know that we can do that, because we don't have this sort of protective bubble. It's like we have this other organism that's like a you know,
chopstick.
The chopstick. It's like a I mean, it's not a chopstick. It's because
a straw.
Well, I mean, sure, you can pick.
You're like semi-permeable, though.
We're open, right? And so a lot of it is learning to deal with surprise, right? Learning that we think that we know because culture says this and logic says this, but that even though we know the building blocks of the explanation, but it's still kind of bullshit, and that something else could still happen, because there's this emergent magic of, you know, the unlimited consciousness rather than the sort of compartmentalized mentality, right?
So just for really quick for the audience, because we haven't delved too deeply into human design on my channel at all, because I'm myself just exploring that. But what I'm hearing is just we're each getting to know the kind of individual that we are, and we're not all exactly the same. We all function in a different sort of modality, and it's up to us to get to know what that is for ourselves so that we can become more masterful in what we're here to express. Yeah. So whatever that might be. And, you know, we can find that through human design and in our natal charts and, you know, different methods, but human design is really cool.
They're just different, like, kind of archetypal legends of the map of our incarnation, right? Where
getting to know our blueprint, you know, like
the
what are we emanating?
What we call Western astrology or tropical astrology was only really embodied in the early 1900s, 1905 or 1908, and it was channeled by a lady sitting in a bathtub in San Diego. And, you know, the majority of the horoscopes that you see in the West are based off of
super simple
other, you know, and not to devalidate it, because the thing is that when you start studying something like channeled consciousness, you realize that there is, when you let the mind go, that there's information and there's truth that can really kind of congeal through the body and you know, speak to truth. And so to me, within this aspect of studying subtlety, there's an oracular process here. There's a divining practice here where, you know, when we talk about like divining rods, you can hold 2 pieces of copper rod in your hand or 2 pieces of willow, and you can find the underwater currents of the underground water in a space. You can find the groundwater where it's coming up to the surface through this,
because we are sensitive instruments. It assists us in
we're like, it's like birds, you know, birds have like a little electromagnetic compass in their minds that, you know, keeps them tuned with the travel pattern of the planet. And, you know, we as human beings also have the exact same kinds of mechanics where one person yawns in one room and then another person's in another room, didn't see that person yawns, but then they yawn. And that's
so what you guys are studying is the subtle science that most people have just become completely oblivious to and are not thinking about at all, and bringing it back into, you know, like tangible form for people.
But I mean, you have to understand that it's not an accident that people were was discouraged, and now we're in an environment where people really are pushing the envelope. And the discouragement spell just is a little bit wishy-washy now. Can we introduce you to one more member of our team quickly?
Oh, please, let's do. We're still
Yeah, I think so.
a good time here. Yay, welcome.
This is one of our senior colleagues called Token, and she can speak
Token?
for herself.
Yeah.
But the reason why she didn't join
Awesome.
earlier is because she was teaching a class. We're like a
Oh,
faculty.
beautiful.
We're like a faculty.
I love it.
Teaching our students all over the world. I had a class at 4:30 yesterday. You had one yesterday as well?
Awesome.
No,
before.
they're, Wednesday.
Wednesday, what were you teaching?
So Token, what were you
Brain
teaching just now?
Brain Gym 101.
Okay, okay. So for anyone who might not be familiar with that, how can you summarize what Brain Gym is? I know a little bit, but I'd love to hear from you.
Body movements to learn something new.
Okay.
Like
And
yoga.
activate parts of the brain, yeah.
Well, the brain is attached to the body and it's all together. Yes. You're using basic movements that are attached to reflexes and things that we learn that we use as children, as developing human beings to repattern and learn additional new things.
Does that help with trauma?
Cool.
Absolutely.
How would that help with trauma?
Because you're learning a new
Yeah,
tool.
how?
But are you going back to your childhood and using this tool? How does that
You
happen?
can. Yeah.
Explain.
Well, I mean, there are certain techniques out there that are generalized, they're really well known throughout psychiatry and all other modalities. But yeah, if there's an age appropriate, like depending on if you're doing an in-depth balance, you can go back to an age if the client so indicates that's where they're going. Because this is all self-responsibility model, heuristic. So the facilitator isn't leading the witness. The witness is leading, and the facilitator is providing the space and the structure.
Yeah.
So
Alex picked up on this heuristic. What were you saying?
you can go back to an age. It's like the first time this happened.
Right.
You'll
So what would
trial.
you do? Can you give one simple example or exercise?
I can give an example really quickly of just because Thornton said that I picked up on heurisms and just of what we mean when we say heuristic, right? So I really love skiing, and I took Avalanche 1 course when I was like 20 years old. That was like, how to stay out of avalanches, right?
Okay.
And they teach you that the only way to learn to stay out of an avalanche is through experience, in a sense. They can only show you so much about the science of snow.
Right, sure.
And then you've got to get out in the field and you've got to be able to see, okay, this ridge line is a safe place for me to traverse, but this ridge line is at an angle and has this terrain trap and it has this kind of, aspecting with the sun, and it's been getting solar radiation on it throughout the day, and the weather just did this. And there's so many different factors at play that trying to write some sort of strict algorithm that's going to say, oh yeah, for sure that's safe, is dangerous, right? Because you're really actually still at risk, even if you've made this assessment and okay, I'm pretty sure this is safe. It's this aspect of wayfinding that is taking in all of the available data, and then you're almost like breathing through it. You're assimilating all of it in real time in a way that allows for you to make a moment-to-moment decision, and that decision might change. You might drop into something that you thought was a good idea, and then you realize, oh man, actually I need to change my plan right now.
You're just teaching people to learn to use their brain, basically.
Well, acknowledging
feel,
that you're already self-teaching, self-learning. That's the basic of heuristic. So, and it's a very much computer term, but it's also an older term. If you look at the root word meanings and so forth, where it came from. But yeah, that was a really good explanation of the self-teaching.
Yeah, I love that.
Are you going to be here next time we do this show?
Oh, I think that would be great. Yeah, we're having that discussion. Yes, that'd be great.
There is space on the sofa.
Wonderful.
Yeah, totally.
That sounds good.
I mean, I think also the reason why we're speaking with you is because, you know, we want to network the work, you know.
Yeah.
We've designed ways of doing research where 1,000 people can join us, and we equip them with our technology and with our questionnaires. And we were talking about cats earlier, but the first study we've talked about doing, and it does change, is actually a study in honor of Rupert Sheldrake about the purring of cats. And we just feel that it would be something the general public or some of your listeners who may have a cat who purrs a lot, and especially if they've got like a health issue, you know, like they know they've got a dippy kidney, and this cat comes and sits on them at 4 o'clock every afternoon and purrs. That's the kind of thing we want to see, and we want to film, you know, the chakras of the cat and the lady or the guy.
Beautiful.
You know, all these kinds of things.
So it's a healing vibration.
Yeah, so then it's important for us not just to be stuck in our lab, but also to, you know, look outwards, because science can easily get shut away, you know.
Definitely.
It's not so accessible unless it needs to be used. So we want to
definitely, and this is definitely giving all the watchers some interesting thoughts to have and to reframe the reality and, you know, their own experience by. So I really appreciate everyone's input here. Really, really valuable. All of you, not only what you're doing, but just also sharing in this way. So I thank you very much for your time here today.
We love you.
Yeah. Oh, I love you too. Oh, hearts. Yeah,
okay,
you're all very
we'll
familiar souls.
We'll sign off and see you next time, yeah?
Okay, sounds great. I appreciate you all so much. Much love. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.